Lawyers are often asked, how do you defend someone who's guilty? And I used to give what I think is a very good answer, and I'm going to give it to you in a minute here. But I just realized this morning that after 30 years, it's been 30 years since I conducted a criminal trial. Has it been that long? Yeah, probably about that long. And only this morning did it sink in that there's an important qualification of my answer, that my answer is not universally applicable. And so here's my answer, that it's not that I'm defending someone who's guilty. What I was doing was requiring the prosecutor to do his job and prove the person's guilt. Now, you don't ever want to be part or the victim of a system that is very quick to come to judgment. The system we have is slow and it's somewhat disorganized, but my God, I mean, as I understand, some places in China, the way things are decided is that 3 of the old grandmas from the neighborhood who know everybody and know their whole history and everything, these 3 old grandmas decide who's guilty and what the penalty ought to be. Okay, now, here's what I realized this morning was that that's a good answer when who I was defending were indigent defendants, people who couldn't pay me, and so the county paid me. So, in a sense, you, the people, were my client, and so yes, it was a valuable service that I performed to make sure that the prosecutor didn't take any shortcuts, that nobody was allowed to lie, that the procedure was followed thoroughly. Now, in this country, we don't offer justice. Well, what we offer is procedure, which, if it's applied fairly and uniformly, is the best form of justice as opposed to 3 old grandmas in the neighborhood. All right, but now the distinction that I came up with this morning was, when the defendant is paying me and he's guilty, I don't know, that would bother me. I guess it would bother me too. Then, it's again, he's paying me, but what I see my job to be is to make sure the prosecutor does his job, doesn't take any shortcuts. Well, that's not what the guy's paying me for. He's paying me to get him off. And I agree, that kind of bothers me a little bit. Now, I did it once. I defended a guy who was guilty, and he owned a trailer court. He owned it. And one morning on his way to work, for the 3rd morning in a row, he sees a puppy out on the porch. Good-sized puppy, maybe 4 or 5 months. And he had a rule, no dogs in the trailer court. I mean, there's kids in there. You can't have dogs running around and, kids stepping in dog poo and maybe the dog's biting the kids. No dogs. So, 3rd morning in a row. So he goes up and he knocks on the door and he can hear them in there, but they won't come to the door. So he takes the puppy and he puts the puppy in his car. And on his way from Findlay, way out Kennewick, on his way out to the Hanford project, the guy's got a security clearance kind of job out at the Hanford Atomic Works. He drops his puppy off out on the highway and drives away. So when he hires me to defend him. So when we get to court, I go to the city attorney and I say, come on, this guy, he's a property owner, big property owner in Benton County, and he's got a high security clearance out at the Hanford Works. And, oh no, the prosecutor says, I prosecute drunk drivers and I prosecute domestic violence, wife thumpers, and I get sort of inured to all of that evil. But when some son of a bitch takes a puppy out and makes a thump out of him out on the highway, I'm gonna nail his ass. All right. Oh, and he says, truth will out. And I said, would you care to bet? So I go to my client and I said, you know, you're guilty as hell, and the only way I can get you off is on a technicality of evidence technicality. Now, I know how you Republican, middle America types absolutely hate these legal technicalities, so I thought I'd better check with you. Do you want me to use this technicality? Because that's the only chance you got. And the guy says, well, do whatever it takes. And I've noticed, that's pretty much how everybody feels, is that, when it's my neck in the noose, when it's my ass on the line, do what it takes. So we go to trial, and the deputy gets up and tells as much as he knows about it, and mostly what he knows about it is what he asked the guy's wife. And so then the prosecutor calls to the stand the defendant's wife. And I said to the judge, now, I know that he cannot force the wife to testify against her husband. What I'm unsure of is whether he can call her to the stand at all. And the judge says, no, he can't call her to the stand at all. So the lady turns around and walks back. Prosecutor looks over at me and frowns. Prosecutor shrugs, says, that's all I got. I look at the judge. Judge says, well, if that's all you got nothing. And my guy went free. So that's about the only one I can remember that I defended somebody I knew very well that he was guilty. And I'm not much of a lawyer. I have to admit that it would kind of stick in my craw to defend a rapist or a murderer that I knew was guilty. Unless the defendant was willing to go by my terms, which is, first off, no lawyer is going to lie or allow his client to lie. As long as the guy understands that, and if he would understand my rules, which are, what I'm doing is I'm going to make the prosecutor prove his case. I'm not going to let you get up there and create a bogus case. Well, good morning. You want more war stories? You got to take me to coffee. Nobody out there is ever taking me to coffee. What is that?